You opened your chart today with a plan. And then the market started bleeding, and your hands wouldn't stop moving. Let me know in the comments, what city are you watching this from? And be honest, are you consistently profitable in trading, or are you still struggling? If you need guidance, drop a comment below. I personally read them, and I'll help where I can. Picture this. It is 9:47 in the morning. You have been watching this one setup for 3 days. 3 full days of patience, of waiting, of telling yourself, not yet, not yet, not yet. And then the candle breaks. Price moves exactly the way you predicted. Your heart jumps. Your cursor moves to the buy button. And right in that moment, before you even click, something inside your chest tightens. A whisper becomes a scream. What if this is a fake breakout? What if I enter, and it reverses? What if this is the trade that wipes me out? And so you wait one more second. Then another, and then you watch, helplessly, painfully, as the trade you studied for 3 days runs 40, 50, 60 points without you, and you sit there, hands frozen, stomach hollow, thinking about all the money you just watched walk out the door while you did absolutely nothing. That feeling. That specific, gut-wrenching, soul-crushing feeling of watching the market bleed profit that should have been yours, while your hands sat completely still in your lap. That is what this entire video is about. Not the technical side, not the indicators, not the moving averages, or the support levels, or the candlestick patterns. We are going much, much deeper than that today. We are going into the place where most traders never dare to look. We are going into the mind, your mind. And I promise you, by the time this video ends, you will never look at stillness the same way again. My name is not important right now. What is important is that I have sat exactly where you are sitting. I have felt exactly what you are feeling. I have blown accounts. I have revenge. Traded at 2 in the morning with shaking hands. I have stared at a losing position for so long that the numbers started blurring together. I have felt the particular shame of making money and then giving every single rupee, every single dollar back to the market within 48 hours. I know this world from the inside. And the one thing, the single most powerful thing, I ever learned about trading did not come from a chart. It came from learning the art of sitting on my hands while the market bled. And that is what I am going to teach you today. But first, we need to understand something that most trading courses will never tell you. Your failure in the markets is not your fault, not in the way you think. It is not because you are stupid. It is not because you chose the wrong broker or the wrong time frame or the wrong strategy. It is because you are human. And the human brain, this magnificent, beautiful, 3-pound universe sitting inside your skull, was never, not even for a single evolutionary second, designed to trade financial markets. Let me explain that, because once you truly understand it, everything changes. Your brain was built over hundreds of thousands of years to keep you alive on a dangerous planet. It was designed to recognize threats and respond to them instantly. When early humans heard a rustle in the tall grass, the ones who stopped and thought about it calmly, they got eaten. The ones who flinched, who ran, who acted immediately, they survived. And their children survived. And their children's children survived. Until eventually, after thousands of generations, you were born, with a brain wired deep in its most ancient layers to treat uncertainty as danger, to treat inaction during a threat as death. That brain, your brain, is now sitting in front of a trading screen, and every time price moves against your position, that ancient survival system fires. The same system that once saved your ancestors from tigers is now screaming at you to close the trade. To act, to do something. To not just sit there while something is hurting you. And here is the cruel, beautiful irony of trading. The market does not reward the person who acts. The market rewards the person who waits. The market bleeds, and the master trader sits on their hands, and they do nothing, and that nothing is worth everything. This is Chapter 1. And I want to call it The Bleeding Market and the Frozen Trader. Because there is a version of sitting on your hands that destroys you, and there is a version that builds you. And most traders confuse the two their entire career. The version that destroys you looks like this. The market is going against your trade. You are down. The red is growing. And you freeze, not from discipline, but from fear. You cannot move because you are terrified. You cannot close because closing makes the loss real. You cannot add because you know deep down it is wrong. So you just sit there, paralyzed, watching the account drain, telling yourself a story. You tell yourself it will come back. You tell yourself the market is manipulated. You tell yourself you just need to give it more room. But none of those are decisions. They are just fear wearing the costume of a plan. That kind of stillness, that paralysis, it is not the art this video is about. That is the trap. That is the cage most traders live in. They confuse frozen fear for patient discipline, and the market charges them for that confusion every single time. The version of stillness that builds you looks completely different from the outside. It looks identical actually. Same hands not moving. Same screen. Same red numbers. But on the inside, it is a completely different experience. The disciplined trader sitting on their hands is not frozen. They are anchored. There is a plan. There is a reason for every number on that screen. There is a stop loss in place that was set before emotion entered the room. And the stillness is not the absence of feeling, because they feel everything, I promise you. The fear is there. The urge to act is there. The voice saying close it, move the stop, just do something, that voice is absolutely there. But they have learned something profound. They have learned that the voice is not information. The voice is just noise. Ancient, biological, survival noise. And the market does not care about your survival instincts. The market only cares about your edge, your plan, and your execution. Nothing else. Now let me tell you about a trader I once knew. I will call him Ravi, because his real name does not matter. Ravi was brilliant. Genuinely, technically brilliant. He could read a chart the way a poet reads a verse, with feeling, with intuition, with precision. He understood market structure better than people who had been trading for decades. He had a strategy with a proven 62% win rate. 62%? In a world where most professional traders are happy with 55, Ravi had 62. By all rights, Ravi should have been making consistent money every single month. But Ravi was not making money. Ravi was losing. Month after month, the account would go up for a week, and then it would come crashing back down. And Ravi could not understand why. He kept tweaking his entries. He kept adjusting his indicators. He kept looking at the chart for the answer, because that is where he had always found answers before. But the answer was not in the chart. The answer was in what Ravi did with his hands when the market started bleeding. I sat with Ravi one evening, and I asked him to walk me through his last 5 losing trades. Not the setups. Not the analysis. What he felt. What he thought. What happened in his body. And what came out was one of the most honest, painful, revealing conversations I have ever had about trading. Ravi told me that every time a trade went against him, even slightly, even within the normal range of what his strategy allowed for, he felt it as a personal attack. He felt the market was targeting him specifically. I know how that sounds. I know how irrational it sounds. But I want you to pause right now and ask yourself honestly, have you ever felt that? Have you ever sat at your screen, watching price move against you, and felt something that was almost like anger? Almost like the market was doing it on purpose. Almost like if you could just hold on long enough, you would be vindicated. If you have felt that, you are not crazy. You are just human. And you have found the exact place where your trading is leaking. Because when the market becomes personal, discipline becomes impossible. When you are sitting on your hands out of stubbornness rather than strategy, you are not trading anymore. You are in a fight. And the market is not a fighter. The market is not your enemy. The market is simply a mirror. It reflects back exactly what you put into it, your clarity when you have it, your chaos when you carry it. And the moment you try to fight it, the moment you make it personal, you lose. Not because the market beats you, but because you beat yourself. This brings us to Chapter 2. The silence between the candles. There is a concept I want to introduce you to that changed the way I trade forever. I call it the silence between the candles. Every chart you have ever looked at, every single one, is made up of 2 things. the candles themselves and the space between them, the moments of movement and the moments of stillness. And here is what most traders never realize. The professional money is not made in the candles. It is made in the silence. It is made in the decision to do nothing when nothing is the right thing to do. It is made in the discipline of watching price move without chasing it. It is made in the 38 times you said no so that the 39th yes could land perfectly. Think about a surgeon. A great surgeon does not make their reputation by making more cuts. They make it by knowing exactly when to cut and when to stop. An unnecessary incision does not just fail to help the patient, it actively harms them. Every unnecessary cut introduces infection risk, delays recovery, creates complications. The surgeon's greatest skill is not speed or aggression, it is restraint, knowing when the most powerful thing they can do is put the scalpel down and let the body heal. Trading is identical. Every unnecessary trade you take does not just fail to make you money, it actively costs you. It costs you in spread, in fees, in missed better opportunities, in emotional capital. The trader's greatest skill is not finding more setups. It is knowing which setups to let pass, so that when the real one arrives, you have everything, capital, focus, clarity, emotional bandwidth, to execute it perfectly. But here is where it gets psychologically complex. Because sitting still while the market is moving feels, in your nervous system, like falling behind. It feels like laziness. It feels like cowardice. There is a deep shame that lives in inaction for a lot of traders, and I want to talk about that shame directly, because it is quietly destroying more accounts than any bad strategy ever could. When you watch a candle explode upward and you are not in it, there is a physical sensation in the chest, a tightness, a loss. The brain registers it as pain. Literally the same neural pathways that process physical pain also process the pain of a missed opportunity. This is not a metaphor. This is neuroscience. FOMO, the fear of missing out, is not an emotion. It is a neurological event. Your brain genuinely experiences the sight of a running trade you are not in as a form of suffering. And because the brain's primary job is to reduce suffering, it pushes you toward relief. It says, just get in. Just click, just do something. Watching hurts. Acting feels better, even if the action is wrong. Even if the action makes no logical sense. The act of clicking the buy button releases a tiny amount of dopamine. It reduces the anxiety of inaction, and so the trap is set. You enter a trade not because the setup was right, but because entering relieved the pain of watching. And now you are in a bad trade, holding it, hoping it works, already emotionally compromised. Already 3 steps behind the version of you that simply waited. This is the FOMO loop. And it does not just cost you one trade. It costs you the next 3, because now you are in recovery mode. Now you are not trading a plan, you are trading a wound. And wounds make terrible decisions. Let me paint you the picture of the FOMO loop in real time, because I want you to recognize it the next time it happens, and it will happen again. You start the day with a plan. There is a level you want to see price reach before you consider entering. Price is currently 50 points away from that level. The morning session opens. Volatility picks up. Price starts moving, but not toward your level. It moves away. A candle prints that you were not expecting. Then another, and now, on your screen, you can see a move that is already up 30 points. You were not in it. The voice starts. That whisper that says you missed it. That says, if you had just been a little more flexible, a little less rigid about your levels, you would have 30 points of profit right now instead of 0. And then, just to make it worse, price keeps going. 40 points, 50 points. The very level you were waiting for now feels impossibly far away, like a ship that has already sailed. And the voice gets louder. It says just enter now. It says the momentum is strong. It says you can manage risk on the way. It says this is basically a new setup. And this is where the art of sitting on your hands while the market bleeds becomes the most important skill you will ever develop. Because the market, in this moment, is bleeding opportunity. It is bleeding movement. Every second you sit still, you feel like you are losing something. And the truth, the cold, hard, beautiful truth, is that the trader who sits on their hands in this moment is not losing. They are saving themselves. They are protecting the version of their account that exists in the future. They are keeping their powder dry for the moment when the setup is actually right, instead of just emotionally urgent. Now we arrive at Chapter 3. Revenge trading and the debt you owe the market. If FOMO is the trap that catches you on the entry, revenge trading is the trap that destroys you on the exit. And I want to go deep into this, because revenge trading is one of the most psychologically sophisticated forms of self-sabotage that exists in the trading world. Most people think revenge trading is just about losing a big trade and then immediately taking another one to win it back. And yes, that is part of it. But revenge trading runs much deeper than that. It is about a belief, a quiet, powerful, dangerous belief that the market owes you something. Think about the last time you had a losing streak. 3 losses in a row. 4, maybe 5. At some point during that streak, did a thought creep in, a thought that sounded something like, I am due for a win? Did you find yourself thinking that after this many losses, probability alone meant the next trade should be a winner? That thought, that feeling of being owed, that is the beginning of revenge trading. Because the moment you believe the market owes you anything, you stop making decisions based on your edge. You start making decisions based on what you feel you deserve. And the market is a completely indifferent force. It does not track your losing streak. It does not feel sympathy for your blown positions. It does not owe you a single point, ever, under any circumstances. The market owes you nothing. And the trader who truly internalizes that, who feels it not just in their mind, but in their bones, that trader becomes dangerous in the best possible way. I want to tell you about a specific evening in my own trading history. It was a Thursday. I had set up a short trade on a currency pair that by every measure in my system was perfect. The setup was clean. The risk was defined. The target was clear. I entered the trade with total confidence. And then the market, as markets sometimes do, just obliterated me. A news event I had not prepared for. A spike that hit my stop in seconds. Gone. And the loss was not enormous in absolute terms. But it was enormous in emotional terms, because the setup had been so clean, so perfect by my own rules, and it had still lost. And sitting there in that moment, something shifted in me. A dark energy, a feeling that was not quite anger, but was its close cousin. And I did something I had promised myself 100 times I would never do again. I immediately opened a new position. A bigger position. Not because the setup was right, not because my system said to, but because I wanted to feel better. I wanted to win that money back in the next 30 minutes and close the laptop and pretend the loss had never happened. And you already know how that story ends. The second trade lost too. The third trade, even bigger, lost as well. By the end of that evening, I had turned a single manageable loss into a wound that took 6 weeks to heal. Not just financially. Emotionally. The shame of that evening sat in my chest for weeks. And the question I kept asking myself, why? I knew better. I had read all the books. I had journaled. I had a system. Why did I do it anyway? The answer came slowly, and it humbled me completely. I did it because in that moment, the pain of the loss was more powerful than the logic of my system. And the only way I knew how to make that pain stop was to act, to trade, to do something. Because sitting with the pain, sitting with the loss, accepting it, letting it just exist without immediately trying to fix it, felt impossible. It felt unbearable. And so I traded. Not because the market gave me a reason to, but because my pain demanded relief. And the market, completely indifferent, completely unmoved by my pain, charged me the full price for every single impulsive click. This is why the art of sitting on your hands while the market bleeds is not about the market at all. It is about your relationship with discomfort. It is about your ability to feel pain, to feel loss, to feel the burning frustration of a missed trade or a stopped out position, and do nothing. To just breathe, to just sit, to let the emotion move through you without letting it move your mouse. That is the practice. That is the discipline. And it is the hardest thing I have ever asked myself to do. Chapter 4. The overtrading disease and the cure that looks like surrender. Overtrading kills more accounts than bad strategies. I want to say that again, because it needs to land properly. Overtrading, the disease of too much action, too many clicks, too many setups that were never really setups, kills more accounts than bad strategies. You can have a terrible strategy and survive for years if you are disciplined about when you apply it. You can have a brilliant strategy and blow up in a week if you overtrade it. Because overtrading is not just a financial problem. It is an information problem. Every bad trade you take floods your system with noise. It confuses your edge. It muddies the water of your own statistical advantage until you cannot see it anymore. And slowly, without even realizing it, you stop being a trader with a system. You become a gambler with a screen. The overtrading personality has a very specific fingerprint. And I want you to see if you recognize yourself in it. The overtrade does not just take too many trades. The overtrade cannot tolerate empty time. When the chart is not moving, something in them becomes restless, becomes uncomfortable. They refresh the chart. They switch time frames. They look at different assets. They look for something, anything, that looks like a setup, because the act of looking for a setup and the act of finding one releases the same dopamine. The searching itself becomes addictive. And eventually the filtering system breaks down. They start seeing setups that are not there. They start talking themselves into entries that their own rules would have rejected a month ago. They lower their standards one small inch at a time, and each inch feels justified in the moment, until one day they look at their trade history and they do not recognize the person who took those positions. The cure for overtrading is not what most people think. Most people try to fix overtrading by adding more rules. A maximum trade count per day. A timer between trades. Restrictions and filters. And those things can help. But they treat the symptom, not the disease. The disease is the inability to be still. The disease is the belief, quiet but powerful, that if you are not trading, you are not working. That if the chart is not moving and your cursor is not moving, you are falling behind somehow. The cure, the real cure, is learning that stillness is work. That watching and waiting and saying no is the most active, most disciplined, most professional thing a trader can do. That the empty hour where you sat at your screen and took 0 trades because 0 setups qualified, that hour was not wasted. That hour was the hour you protected your capital. That hour was the hour you maintained your edge. That hour was the hour that a less disciplined trader was clicking themselves into losses that you did not take. The empty hour is worth more than you know. Learn to sit in it without guilt. Learn to sit in it without the compulsion to fill it with action. That is the work. Now let me give you something concrete. Let me give you a system. I call it the 3 gates of action, and it is the framework I use every single time my hands start itching to enter a trade. Before any trade goes live, before my finger touches the entry button, the trade has to pass through 3 gates. Gate 1 is the setup gate. I ask myself one question and one question only. Is this setup in my trading plan? Not is this setup interesting? Not does this setup look good? Not does this setup feel right? Is this setup, this exact configuration, something I wrote down in my plan before the market opened today? If the answer is no, the trade does not exist. I do not analyze it further. I do not debate it. No plan, no trade. Gate 2 is the risk gate. Assuming the setup passes gate 1, I ask, do I know exactly where I am wrong? Not roughly. Exactly. I need to be able to point to the specific price level where this trade idea is invalidated. And I need to know that the distance from my entry to that level represents a risk I am completely comfortable losing. Not just financially comfortable, emotionally comfortable. Because if you place a stop at a level where the loss would devastate you emotionally, you will move the stop before price gets there. Guaranteed. The risk has to be something you can lose without it changing your next decision. Gate 3 is the clarity gate. This is the most subtle gate and the most important one. I ask myself, am I trading this because it is right, or am I trading this because I need to trade? Am I in a calm, clear state right now, or am I in a state of urgency, frustration, excitement, or fear? The emotional check, the honesty check. Because a perfect setup traded in the wrong emotional state will underperform a mediocre setup traded with perfect clarity every single time. If I cannot honestly say I am calm and clear, the trade does not get placed, regardless of how good the setup looks. 3 gates. Every trade, every time. And I will tell you honestly, the day I implemented this system was the day my account stopped bleeding. Not because I suddenly became a better analyst, but because I stopped taking the trades that were costing me everything. The trades I was taking out of boredom, out of frustration, out of FOMO, out of the desperate need to just feel like I was doing something. Those trades disappeared. And in the silence, where they used to be, actual profit started to grow. Chapter 5. The Flatline Debrief and the Trader You Are Becoming. Here is a practice I want to give you that will change your trading more than any indicator or strategy. After every single trade, winner or loser, I want you to write 3 sentences. Just 3, but they have to be factual. Not emotional, not evaluative, not self-critical or self-congratulatory. Factual. Sentence 1, what the market did. Sentence 2, what you did. Sentence 3, whether your action matched your plan. That is it. No judgment, no story about whether you are a good or bad trader. No narrative about your future. Just 3 factual sentences. I call this the flatline debrief, because I want your emotional response to each trade to flatline as quickly as possible. I want you to process the trade with the cold, clear eyes of a scientist rather than the hot, bleeding eyes of a gambler. Because the journal is not about tracking profit and loss. It is about tracking you. It is about building the data set of your own psychology. Over time, over weeks and months of flatline debriefs, you will start to see patterns. You will see that your losing trades cluster around certain times of day when your energy is low. You will see that your worst weeks follow your best weeks. Because success makes you confident and confidence makes you sloppy. You will see that your biggest wins came after your longest periods of sitting on your hands. And that data, that map of yourself, is worth more than any trading course, any indicator, any mentor, any strategy. Because the greatest edge in trading is self-knowledge. Not self-improvement, not self-discipline in the abstract. Self-knowledge. Knowing when you are sharp and when you are not. Knowing what conditions bring out the best version of your trading and what conditions bring out the worst. Knowing the specific triggers that make your hands move when they should be still. That knowledge is the foundation of everything. And the flatline debrief is how you build it, one trade at a time. I want to talk about something that most trading content never touches, and that is the emotional cost of this journey. Because trading is not just financially demanding. It is psychologically exhausting in a way that very few other pursuits are. The combination of financial stakes and uncertainty and the near, constant requirement to make decisions under pressure. It is a recipe for psychological strain. And a lot of traders are carrying that strain without even naming it. They go home and they are irritable without knowing why. They sleep badly without understanding the source. They feel a low, grade anxiety that hovers like a cloud even on the days they are not at the screen. And they attribute it to the market, to their strategy, to their broker, to everything external. But the real source of the strain is the internal battle. The battle between the impulsive mind and the disciplined mind. Between the ancient survival brain and the rational planning brain. Between the part of you that wants to act and the part of you that knows you should wait. That battle is fought every single day, and it costs energy whether you win or lose it. This is why the art of sitting on your hands is not just a trading skill. It is a life skill. Because the discipline you build in front of that screen, the ability to feel an urge powerfully and not act on it, the ability to sit with discomfort without immediately seeking relief, the ability to trust a plan, even when your emotions are screaming at you to abandon it, that discipline bleeds out into every other area of your life. It changes how you respond to conflict. It changes how you handle setbacks. It changes your relationship with patience and trust and uncertainty everywhere. Trading will break you in ways you did not expect, and then, if you let it, it will rebuild you into something stronger and more whole than you were before. But only if you do the inner work. Only if you treat the chart as a mirror, not just a money machine. We are in the final chapter now, and I want to make this one count. Everything I have said today, the biology, the FOMO, the revenge trading, the overtrading, the 3 gates, the flatline debrief, it all points to one central truth. And the truth is this: the most powerful move you will ever make in your trading career is the trade you do not take. The most valuable skill you will ever develop is the ability to sit on your hands while the market bleeds opportunity past you and feel at peace with your stillness. Not resigned, not paralyzed, not absent, at peace. Because you know your edge, you know your plan. You know that the setup either qualifies or it does not, and your job is not to manufacture reasons for it to qualify. Your job is to wait, clear-eyed and patient, until the market lines up with your criteria, and then to execute without hesitation, without flinching, without the internal war that used to steal your best trades from you. That is mastery. Not the mastery of prediction. Not the mastery of reading charts. The mastery of self. The mastery of the space between the impulse and the action. The 3-second gap between feeling the urge and deciding what to do with it. That gap, small as it seems, is where all of trading lives. In that gap lives your account growth or your account destruction. In that gap lives your identity as a disciplined trader or a reactive gambler. In that gap, if you build the practice, lives everything. I want to leave you with a challenge. For the next 7 days, I want you to track every single moment where you felt the urge to trade and you did not take the trade. Every time you sat on your hands. Every moment of stillness that cost you something emotionally. Write it down. Not the setups you took. The ones you did not take. And next to each one, write one word about how it felt to wait. Not whether you were right or wrong. How it felt. Do this for 7 days. And then come back to this video and drop that one word in the comments. Because I want to know what you discovered about yourself in the silence. I want to know what you found in the space between the candles. And I want to know from what city you are watching, because this community that we are building together, trader to trader, human to human, it matters. Your struggle matters. Your growth matters. Type the word stillness in the comments below if you are committing to this 7-day practice. And if you are in a place right now where your account is hurting, where the losses feel too heavy, where you are not sure you can keep going, please drop a comment. I read every single one. And I will answer. Because the art of sitting on your hands while the market bleeds is not learned alone. It is learned in community. It is learned in honesty. It is learned in the willingness to say, I am struggling, and I am still here, and I am not done yet. The market will bleed again tomorrow. It always does. The question is not whether you can stop the bleeding. The question is whether you can sit with your hands still, breathing, patient and clear, and trust that the right moment is coming. It always comes, for the trader who waits for it.